So this talk this evening is called "Why Did the Buddha Smile?" So the image of the Buddha's smile is one of the most profound and beautiful in any religious tradition. A film was made some time ago called The Little Buddha captures this idea extremely well. As Gautama Buddha is under the Bodhi tree meditating, evil forces try to break his concentration, but he sits calm and unperturbed with a gentle smile upon his face. Even when the armies of Mara, the evil king, the voice of silence is called the men's vices personified, but in this it's actually a king of evil. Even when the armies of Mara shoot flaming arrows at him, they're transformed into flowers in the Buddha's aura. And this very scene is worthy of very deep thought and meditation. And life is often hard for all of us, but if in the midst of our tears and our sufferings, we can smile inwardly and outwardly, then we have achieved something of value. If we can go on, as the Buddha did, to smile out upon the whole world with compassion, then we have found a pearl of great price. And we need never be afraid again. Deep within, we are all Buddhas, and therefore the smile is within each one of us. But we obscure it with our wrong views and our doubts foisted upon us by society. The story of the Buddha is symbolic, and all that happened to him in his life can be related to our own lives on many different levels. For example, a period of great suffering helps us to appreciate and understand the suffering of others, and therefore sympathize with them and their pain in reality. Whereas if we sympathize and we haven't suffered, we never really understand, and we can never really be accepted by those people. But it is the overcoming of that pain that is the real lesson. Yes, we can turn the arrows of agony into flowers of love, peace and harmony, and we can dissolve the separateness and the separatist views that force us to think of his or her pain and my pain. It's all the same. Then we can see that there is only one heart beating in the whole of this universe, and that all suffering is indeed shared. So we need to come to understand the heart of the Buddha, not just the historical Buddha, but the Buddha nature within each one of us. To do this, we need to transcend any attachment to the intellect. We need to understand the words of Prospero in Shakespeare's Tempest, when he realizes something higher than the rough magic that he had hitherto practiced. He feels something much deeper and much more profound. He knows that the time has come to break his staff and drown his book. So there comes a time when we need to throw our book learning far into the ocean and watch it sink beneath the waves. The time has then come to know something even more wonderful, far more wonderful and beautiful. Something that makes us mild in every way. There has to come a spontaneity that transforms us into true human beings and shows us the real faith within us. When the harmony of the universe is reflected in our human form, then we begin to live at last. We are tired of shadows and want to see the light that creates them. We are tired of loneliness and want to live in the blessed company of our fellow human beings. We are tired of arguing and want to dwell in peace and harmony. Why did the Buddha smile? Can we not go deep, deep, deep into our own hearts and know the reason? Why do we smile when we see an act of kindness or when we see a child at play? Think deeply and you will know. Gautama Buddha had watched his fellow human beings suffer for far too long under the Bodhi tree. He learned that there was a way to end suffering, and it was within the reach of anyone who wanted to try. Many exoteric renderings have been given of the Four Noble Truths, and any book on Buddhism will give these. But they are what's known as the I doctrine, the exoteric, just as is even The Voice of the Silence by H.P. Blavatsky, or any other book on Buddhism, theosophy, or any philosophy or religion. The real alchemical process has to happen within the mind of the aspirant. But first, we must study until we have acquired that faith built upon knowledge, not blind faith, that will give us the confidence to let go of all our preconceived ideas and live under the guidance of our higher selves. By experience, we have to come to know why the Buddha did smile. We are so fond of the stern face and the comfort of feeling that we are serious and that this is what is needed, so that we lose out on the simplicity of living in the light of the spiritual part of our nature. We become burdened by words until we lose sight of our fellow human beings and forget that behind the veil of matter, there is only oneness. Our studies become chains that bind us to the earth, and we sink into apathy. Believing that to grasp some technical fact concerning the path is a laudable achievement. In fact, it is a joke played upon us by Mara, the king of illusion, a symbol for the trickster quality of the material world. Truth cannot be realized by physical means. We have to raise our consciousness to a higher level to really understand spiritual subjects. Our furrowed brow seriousness is just the grimace of the clown and has no real depth. No one who really appreciates the splendor of the divinity in all of us can ever be in the slightest bit serious, at least when dwelling upon that particular subject. Anything that makes us so is a restriction and ought to be cast aside like a cloak of stinging nettles. It will then be argued that the starving millions have not the conditions to be cheerful, and many, many people in the world are suffering terribly. So how can they be cheerful? But common sense replies that such conditions have been created by morose power and money mad inhabitants of this whirling globe. If the so-called leaders of society learn to stop their snarling and find the Buddha's smile, which lives in them somewhere, no matter how deeply hidden, then there will be a tremendous change for the good in the great heart of humanity. It can and will happen if only a few believers believe and commence the Herculean task right now. I'm not saying it'll be an instant solution. We all have our hard times and our difficult times. We must come through them and learn to smile again. The trouble is that most of us have lost our creativity. We are locked into patterns of thought and behaviour that give us no opportunity to express ourselves and to bring the spontaneity of the soul into our day-to-day lives. We can all change this. Many New Age therapies help us to release the tensions that build up as a result of our frustrations. Creative movement to music, or silence, artwork, relaxation, meditation, etc., all allow us to free ourselves from these destructive thought patterns and to really come alive at last. Even cultivating our smiles can be of great value, and the healing energy of the smile is boundless if we know how to use it. There's a Chinese system where you actually smile at all the different organs of your body one by one. You go through your entire system and smile at all the different organs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your whatever, your brain. So in the end, there's no reason to be pessimistic at all. Deep within, we are in tune with the universal harmony. And if we can bring our mind and body to reflect that harmony, then we'll start to live as truly human beings and free ourselves from the robotic patterns that society forces upon us. The pathway to true wisdom lies through the development of love for all beings. In the 1978 film version of The Thief of Baghdad, the gatekeeper of the Temple of Truth tells us that those who stray from the path of truth are turned to stone. Is this not true of society in general sometimes? Are not our hearts, in general, in society, hardened in today's moral climate? Can we be said to be living as real human beings, guided by what we feel is right deep within? I'm speaking, of course, as all of us as part of society, and other individuals who are studying and raise themselves above that. In reality, all is okay, and the world goes on its way as it should do. We mess it all up. We are unaware of our own potential and listen to external voices, often believing that we are being independent. We miss the mark so often and suffer for it. We create our own hell and weep because of our own mistaken view of things, of the world around us. At the centre of everything, there is a love supreme. There is beauty and light and peace and harmony, and we long for it. We yearn with such intensity that we often become frustrated and depressed because we do not know what it is that we are searching for. We know it is something. We are so engrossed in earthly pursuits that we only feel it faintly. And that very vagueness makes us suffer more. For those of us who wish for peace and justice and may become freedom fighters, not understanding that the very law of equilibrium in the universe does not allow for any disturbance of that harmony, and that all such perturbations must find their way back in the end to their originators. It is the sadness of these that strikes deep into the consciousness of humanity, unable to escape their inward love for humanity, but so brutalized by society that they cannot recognize the love in it, in its pristine purity. They are tormented by deep feelings of doubt that often have to be covered by outward acts of violence and the shutting out of any thoughts concerning their victims. Therefore, a shallowness of thought develops that acts as a barrier to any feelings of guilt they may have. If they were but to accept the doctrines of reincarnation and karma, for example, cause and effect, in all their glory, then the world may hear a different story, and a golden age would return to earth. Often we are moved by beautiful music and the movement of someone to that music. But why distance ourselves? We are that person, and we are that music. So just move quietly and gently to the rhythms in your room, in the countryside, or by the beach. Move towards the rising or setting sun. Follow the ebb and flow of the tide. Go with the wind. And as you move, smile. Because inwardly you know that everything is going to be okay in the end, if you but try to understand who you truly are. One of my favourite sayings is, the best is yet to come. And if you are unable to move physically, move in your mind towards that centre of reality, consciousness and bliss, as is seated in all our hearts. Be a friend to the world, for every tiny thing that lives, for every soul that cowers in fear or cries in pain. Be there, moving and inspiring amidst the very atoms that make up the earth, and all contained in it. Honour the day and honour the night, and give all that you learn for the greater good of the all. It was for no small reason that the Buddha smiled behind me. If we are all Buddha, which Buddha just means enlightened, within, then the smile that comes despite our sufferings is his smile. It is also the earth's smile. There is in reality only one smile, that one smile completely transforms our inner landscape. We see things differently. We only need to pick up a newspaper or listen to a workaday conversation to feel the shallowness of society at times. We no longer need to read books about morality and agonize over what is right or wrong, because we suddenly are aware of the contrast between the light and the dark things in life, and also of the non-duality that transcends all manifestations, and yet is that manifestation. The paradox at last makes sense. We ask for the bread of understanding, but were given the stone of intellectuality. It has proven a burden in the end, though it served its purpose, and without it we would have failed. But there comes a time when the real man and woman must assert themselves despite the world and its silly standards of propriety. This is true also of the real woman, of course. Both man and woman in modern society have become caricatures of what they should be, constantly arguing over transitory materialistic rights that only affect the greedy physical self that tries to keep a firm grip on its domain by bedazzling its possessors into thinking that it is all important. In fact, it is just a passing guest that burns out very quickly in comparison to the millions of years of existence of the soul and the eternity of the spirit. It is also a chain that binds us to earth, stops us from soaring into the blue skies of freedom. It's only by learning to control the physical body through meditation and certain sensible exercises that we can use it to reflect the spirit in the world around us and develop beneficent healing powers that are a boon to our fellow man and woman. But letting it run riot and allowing it to control instead of being controlled is to court disaster. Unfortunately, 99% of humanity are slaves to their physical way of life, and their mode of expression clearly shows this. Even their smiles are produced mechanically for some ulterior motive. It is rare that the true smile shines through, but it does happen, and it is becoming more and more common. There was a poem written by William Blake called The Smile, which talks of the different kinds of smiles. And I'm going to end this with this particular poem. He says, "There is a smile of love, and there is a smile of deceit, and there is a smile of smiles in which these two smiles meet. And there is a frown of hate, and there is a frown of disdain, and there is a frown of frowns, which you strive to forget in vain. For it sticks in the heart's deep core, and it sticks in the deep backbone, and no smile that ever was smiled, but only one smile alone, that betwixt the cradle and grave, it only once smiled can be, but when it once is smiled, there's an end to all misery." Thank you very much for listening. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. And keep smiling.